Okay. Who was the last driver to win the first race of the season and the last race of the season, but not win the championship?
Oh God. First and last.
Yeah, but didn't win the championship.
I'm gonna go with Bottas.
No.
Okay, was that a completely terrible guess or was that an okay guess? Because Bottas is
It was,
one of few.
it was a mega guess, but it was an it was a good guess.
Okay.
But no,
I
it
was
wasn't
thinking
Bottas.
education. I was like, they won so many over the last 10 years.
Yeah, it wasn't Bottas.
Would that have Vettel then?
No, but it was in the Vettel era.
It was in the Vettel era.
Yeah.
I've got no clue.
They're not in the grid anymore, if that gives you a bit more of a clue.
I was going to say Nico.
Yeah, they're not in the grid anymore.
No, as in Nico is in Rosberg. Beat Hamilton in the same machinery, not
that Nico Rosberg. No, it wasn't Nico.
Charles?
No, it wasn't Charles.
No, you're gonna have to put me out of my misery because otherwise this podcast is just not going to go anywhere. I've been going now for a minute and a half and I still can't think of anyone.
Jenson Button.
Jenson Button. What?
Yeah.
When was that then? 2012.
2012. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, at least I got 2012 right. But I
yeah, you got the Vettel era.
Yeah.
So yeah, but he didn't win a championship. He won a few races, like a certain driver. Who...
Well, he won a few races that year. He did win a championship. He was still a world champion.
Yeah, he was still a world champion.
So just to not disrespect
he didn't win that
Mr. Button, so we don't get any legal cases thrown at us. But welcome everyone to the 107 podcast. This week we've been in Brazil, we haven't been in Brazil, but we've been to Brazil.
We wanted to be in Brazil with that weather.
Yeah, I don't know about that. It was ridiculous, wasn't it? The weather during proper quali on Friday was ridiculous. The roof came off of one of the grandstands in Brazil. I will never complain about Silverstone weather ever again. I stand by me complaining about Belgium 2021 weather.
You almost called it.
I will always complain about. But
you almost called it
not bad.
With the when we're looking at the weather. You're like, oh yeah, it's qualifying. It's gonna be wet, but it's after. So
yeah, the weather did get worse after quality, like a lot worse.
Yeah, where it went from like day to night, literally.
Pretty much, yeah. And so for those of you who don't know, essentially one of the there was so much wind and rain and predominantly wind that it ripped off the roof of one of the grandstands, and I believe it did a few of the little random bits and pieces of damage. But as far as I know, no one was injured or harmed or anything like that. So, which is absolutely fantastic.
But it looked dangerous.
Yeah, a friend of mine did say that it almost fell on top of a few people. He was he's one of the photographers, and he said it was quite bad. So, not great at all. But I mean, yeah, at least they had a better weekend than Charles.
Did Charles even have a weekend?
I would argue no. But that's just me. But obviously Brazil was a decent enough weekend if you're not a Ferrari fan, that is anyway. Or a Mercedes fan, I guess. But I actually think that we have a decent amount to talk about. I'm going to move my mic, I'm very sorry. I think we actually have a decent amount to talk about this week. Which is great for podcast content. And so let's start off with quali on the Friday, normal quali, and then we'll talk about sprint in and of itself as a singular thing as well. Sure. Quali was pretty interesting, I think, especially if you're an Aston Martin fan, right?
Yeah, it was interesting. We're like, huh? Are we third and fourth?
Yeah, it was really odd. But Aston Martin have seemed to have brought this hybrid version of their car, where essentially they have some of the upgrades but not all of them, but then reverted quite a lot of the car back to the original spec that they hit the track with in Bahrain, so which seems to have helped, which is brilliant. for them anyway. Not so much if your name's Sergio Perez, but we'll get to that later. I think it's a really good step in the right direction for them. And it will be very interesting now, I guess, the battle for fourth and the constructors is back on, essentially. Now that, Aston Martin seem to be able to score points again. Solid points again.
Oscar didn't have the best weekend or the best Sunday.
No, but that wasn't his fault either, to be fair. Anything else around quali? Nothing else really surprised me during quali, if I'm honest, other than the rain, which we've already discussed.
The only thing that was surprising, I mean, is it surprising anymore that like Max puts on pole and Sergio was P9?
No, that's not surprising. That's typical at this point. Like, I think Sergio's average qualifying is like 7th or 8th, I think, at this point now.
Yeah.
So
I mean, maybe you got caught out a little bit with the weather. But I don't know. I just don't know with Sergio anymore. But actually, you know what? We'll talk about it. He did have a good race on Sunday, I think. But he needs to be up there in qualifying. But
yeah.
What do you think is happening with Kevin Magnussen? Nico is consistently out qualifying him week in, week out. Right.
I'm not entirely sure. I think part of it is just Nico is very good at quali. I'll be honest with you. I think
Nico's just a solid driver.
Is a solid driver, absolutely fantastic, and potentially, in complete honesty, probably a bit more adaptable than Kevin potentially is. And I think also maybe in part, Kevin is so used to driving the Haas, he has to drive it with his elbows out, and he's used to it being quite a slow car. Whereas Nico has sort of jumped around a little bit. So maybe Nico knows exactly how to get the most out of a car rather than Kevin just trying to drag it to a position. There's potentially that argument too. But I honestly don't know. I think that it's also odd because it was strange when Kevin came back and then he did really, really well in Bahrain, scored points for the team. And then now just doesn't seem to be doing very well in comparison to Nico. But then again, he had some really, really bad luck on Sunday as well. Obviously not making it any further than turn 1. But I just think that Nico's just solid at quali. I think that's pretty much what it mostly comes down to, in complete honesty.
But he's quite good in the race as well. But yeah, it's just interesting to see like Nico's come in and really put his mark down in that team. Like I'm the guy, or maybe it's just hey, I'm the guy for the next Mercedes, Red Bull, possibly Ferrari seat as well. Yeah. I think he was due to go to one of the top teams, but Renault wouldn't release him from his contract. I can't remember which team it is. I'll find out.
That sounds like a Renault thing to do, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay, should we talk about the sprint?
Yes, sprint.
Sprint was actually quite good.
I thought the sprint was quite good. The sprint was more entertaining than the race itself.
It was, yeah, definitely was.
The race, other than the race proper, other than the first lap and arguably the last lap, it was a snooze fest. I'll be honest, it wasn't that great. The restart obviously was.
Hold on, we're talking about the sprint or the race?
But the sprint race, yeah, sorry, I was just covering like what I like very quickly in comparison to the sprint race. Sprint race was great. Sprint race had a lot more stuff going on. It had Daniel Ricciardo suddenly, remembering who he was. We had a great battle between him and Sainz.
Sergio remembered who he was.
Sergio all of a sudden woke up from his slumber and remembered who he was as well. I thought it was decent enough. Max won, obviously, but did you see Max's comments about sprint races in the Thursday and Friday media sessions?
Yeah, it's just like, just don't ask me about it.
He's so done with it, isn't he? It's ridiculous. I've never seen somebody who wins and is so successful in one thing not want to do that one thing. It's insane. But in all honesty, I completely agree with Max. Completely agree.
I do.
Imagine how much more interesting that sprint race would have been if they'd have made changes like one-shot quali or reverse grids or top 10 reversed or, whatever. Even if they just literally every single time they did a sprint race, there was like a wild card that they didn't know what was going to happen. And so this wild card is like one of 10 options. And like any one of the 10 options could come up. It's like a raffle. They draw it and it's one shot quali, or you have to use the hard tire the entire sprint or something like that. Like there has to be some sort of wild card that makes it interesting, because sprint races are predominantly quite boring, and it just sort of shows what the race will end up looking like anyway. So yeah,
well, I
but
think
for some reason
this
this one was interesting.
This sprint didn't. Like Mercedes were okay. Aston Martin were down 11th and 12th, but we know how they finished on the Sunday.
Yeah.
I still think that sprint races should determine the grid for a Sunday. That's what I think.
Yeah, there's that as well. Especially if you were to do reverse grid and then it decides the grid for Sunday. That would be mad.
So, like, if you think about it, you've got Max, Lando, Sergio, and P3. That would have been good for his morale.
Yeah.
And the Astons were like 11th and 12th. So, yeah, I still go by my idea that they should get rid of qualifying, and sprint races like a qualifying, and it just sets it up for the next race.
Yeah, that's also a very good idea. That would be very, very cool. So there's only one
because that rewards people for doing well in the sprint race.
Yeah.
Right. And then they got a good position for. So let's just say it's Alex, right? Alex, maybe he qualifies. Maybe he's like normally he'd be like P15, P16, right? But he does the sprint race and gets up to like 8th.
Yeah.
And then he's in the race in 8th, and he does really well, and he goes up to, let's just say, 5th. So for the next sprint, he's in 5th, rather than Q3 or maybe the bottom of Q2 where he normally could be or would be. So, but yeah, they definitely have to do something about sprints. It'll be interesting to see what they do. And but Max just says it like it is.
Yes,
Call him out.
pretty much. And like I said, I think a lot of people, and apparently some of the drivers, are supportive of the comments he made as well. Like something has to be done to, mix it up a little bit, make it a bit more different.
Because it's just essentially a shortened version of Sunday. So, like you said, most of the time it gives away what's going to happen on the Sunday. The lack of practice means you get possible disqualifications like Charles and Lewis. So they don't get, and then if they don't have that time to set up and tweak the car, I don't know if that's your dog in the background.
Yes, it is. Yeah, sorry, my dog is he's like poking his head out from underneath the desk.
Is it Senna or is it Bucky?
No, this is Bucky. I think he wants to go to the outside. And do you want to be on camera, mate? Come on then. Oh no.
Bucky's massive though.
Oh, he can be a good lap dog, can't you? Good podcast dog. There we go.
That's true.
I'm gonna.
Where was I?
Yeah, please carry on.
What was I saying? Yeah, it kind of just gives away what's going to happen in the race. It doesn't give the teams chance to tweak their cars, try different setups. So yeah, hopefully they make some changes, because they're not going away. Sprints are not going away, are they, Bucky? Just stay silent if you think sprints are going to go away. Oh, he thinks they're going to go away.
Interesting. Or do you think they're going to change at the very least? All right. Well, no.
Don't say anything if you think Max is going to win in Vegas.
Why did he look at the camera?
This dog knows everything.
He also can't hear you. But yeah, I think that something has to change about the sprint. But like I said, the sprint was great. We got to see not Prime, but we got to see some classic Daniel Ricciardo. And we got to see a couple of other bits and pieces as well happening. So, I mean, you can't really complain too much, to be completely honest. It's just a shame that the race itself wasn't as interesting as the race proper. That's where the like.
No, so let's move on. Let's move on to the race then. It started off well. I mean, like does Max have any weakness? Right, he starts well. So even if he's P2, he's usually P1 by the end of the first lap.
In the sprint race. Sorry, I'm trying to juggle a dog. In the sprint race, Max starting on the inside in P2 actually probably made it easier to defend from Lando, if I'm completely honest. I think that P2 is sometimes a better position to start from in Brazil than
But
P1.
even when he's on P1, he still had a good start. It's just like,
Well,
right,
yeah,
you can't really get him at the start. He just manages the race from
what
start to
if
finish.
it was a rule in Formula One
Oh
that once
gosh.
you won the championship, you had to start from 20th every race, no matter what?
Ooh. That would be interesting. That would be interesting, actually. But do you know what? Like, all right, let's be all semantics. Just get pushed back by because like, hey, we've still got a
Yeah,
constructors championship to win. That's not fair. Kind of
yeah,
thing.
no, I know what you mean.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, Max controlled it. Lando did super well. There was nothing more he could do than get P2.
No, not really. I think Lando. There's a reason why Lando was voted driver of the day as well.
Yeah, I don't think he should have got it though.
Wow, and I wonder why that is.
Well, no, I think if you just watch the race, you'll see. But
Oh,
I
sorry.
guess
Were
there's
we
two.
watching different races then?
Well, clearly you are. If you thought Lando was driver of the day,
I know Lando was
you
driver
and
of
your
the day.
papaya tinted glasses. At least I'm somewhat neutral, right?
Somewhat neutral. Who would you vote for as driver of the day then? Go on, hit me.
It would be Fernando.
Ah, would it?
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
Why would it? You know what? We'll save Fernando and Sergio for last, right?
Okay, sure. Yeah,
But
all right.
okay, let's talk about. Do you know what's that quote? They say, have you ever seen an unhappy person in a Ferrari?
I have. I've seen this same person multiple times. I saw him in France. I saw him in Brazil last year, and I've seen him in Brazil this year.
Monaco, throw Monaco in there a few
Monaco,
times.
yeah, also a good one. Any time at the end of a race he's put on pole. Yes, of course, Charles Leclerc didn't even make it to the grid.
Did not even manage to start. He was just there. What was the issue? Because they said it was hydraulics, but then he came out and said that it wasn't hydraulics, but they know what the issue is, but you can't say anything just yet.
I've got absolutely no idea. However, it was very interesting that also the Alfa Romeo team had to withdraw both of their cars, and that is also a Ferrari power unit. So it could have been the same problem. I don't know. I don't think any of the teams were allowed to say like, "Oh, it was this problem" or whatever it was right now. But it was interesting that all three of them retired from the race, and they're all Ferrari power units.
Yeah, that's a bit strange. But Carlos was okay. But yeah,
true. But so were both of the Haas cars. Well, one of the Haas cars.
But yeah, it's just all I saw was just him into like the barrier. I was like, no way.
Yeah.
No way. Like how? Like is how?
No, it's such a freak accident as well. I was messaging a friend of mine, and I'll read you these messages because they are very accurate. And essentially, this was he sent me the meme which has been going around, which is man who thought he'd lost all hope loses the last additional bit of hope he didn't even know he still had. And then I said, I responded, this is about Charles, obviously. I said, he honestly has the worst luck I've ever seen. And then I responded with, other than being a genetically perfect human being and also a millionaire and also an F1 driver.
It's mad.
Yeah.
And then he got it going, and I thought, okay, you just might be able to go into the pit lane.
No.
But no, the car's too damaged. And then
the red flag happened, and then he ran back to his car like he was somehow going to start it up again and then join the grid. And I was like, how on earth? No, no.
Yeah. And do you see like on social media that they were like the marshals taking a picture?
The marshals taking the photo was incredible. It was so good.
There's like Charles probably just like dying inside somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere up on the hill. And there's all these marshals like smiling next to this car.
Smiling, thumbs up. It's like
absolutely
Ferrari.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And then there was the incident with the Hasses and Alex Albon, which was a shame.
Yeah, that
Alex could have done really well that race. Well, no, because that was after the first. No, that was just the first start.
That was the first start.
That
was the first start, and that was why we had to have the second start.
Yeah, which was it was fair. It was a racing incident.
Yeah, it is what it is. Racing incident. whatever. Just super unlucky at the end of the
Yeah,
day for Alex and for Daniel and for Kevin and for Oscar.
yeah.
All four of them.
There's nothing you can do in that. It's
Don't
just
think
like
anyone else got damage from that. But still,
nah.
4 cars is still a ridiculous amount of
Yep.
damage and a ridiculous amount of people to bow out, essentially. Or not bow out, but essentially bow out when you look at Daniel Ricciardo and Oscar Piastri, both the Australians driving a lap down, essentially in their own time zone. I did find that quite funny. But obviously, they carried on racing. I did see a couple of people on X being like, "Why on earth would you throw Danny and Oscar back into it when they've got damage?" Especially Oscar, who still had damage to his McLaren, which the mechanics weren't able to fix. And essentially, it's like if there was one red flag or safety car, like they would have been back in it. That's the reason why.
But not even that, right? It just Daniel and Oscar need experience.
And
So
that,
obviously,
yes.
Daniel's come back as Oscar's rookie year. They can try like, okay, we'll see how this tire works, and we can try this engine setting, and we can see how this aerodynamic piece works. So it's like an extended testing session.
I 100% agree. I want to let's completely derail the conversation a little bit. And
Okay.
I have a theory about AlphaTauri, and that is that Daniel Ricciardo has come in and proven that the AlphaTauri isn't as bad as you may have first thought. And the reason for that is more than likely Daniel Ricciardo was able to come in as an experienced driver. Yuki has never been at a different team before. Bear that in mind as well. Nick De Vries has never been in another Formula One team. He's been obviously at different Formula E teams and stuff like that. And is a champion in various other series as well. And Liam Lawson also never been part of a different F1 team. So for Daniel to come in, he's able to see the setup and be able to give the engineers so much valuable feedback that it's actually clawed that AlphaTauri into a somewhat usable setup for them to get a couple of points in certain situations. And that is worth its weight in gold. And I believe the points that have brought them up to 7th in the constructors, I think it's worth like $20 million or something like that. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I don't know the exact figure, but Daniel is worth his weight in gold to that team right now. It's ridiculous.
It's no coincidence that both him and Yuki doing well as well since he's come in. So yeah, it sounds like a credible theory that he's managed to unlock some potential.
Especially if he's obviously had an injured hand, he needs to go into the simulator and he needs to help with data and he needs to like do bits and pieces. So if he's not able to be in the car racing, he will be on the sidelines trying to help improve anything he possibly can to help, further his chances later on in the season and obviously next season as well, because most of these cars will remain similar enough for next season as well. There's no huge regulation changes as well. So he's helping himself too for next season. So it's really, really encouraging to see all of a sudden there's a bit of pace coming from that AlphaTauri. It's really, really good.
Yeah, and like you said, he's got experience with the sister team, with Red Bull,
True,
with other teams. Maybe that, like you said, he knows how to set up a car, or the issues that he had with McLaren, maybe the car wasn't to his liking.
Yeah,
he's come into AlphaTauri and say, "This is how I like to drive the car," and they're like, "Oh, actually, wow, we've managed to get some performance with the way you like to drive it." So
yeah, it could be
definitely no coincidence.
Yeah, it could be that the AlphaTauri was just a lot more adaptable than last season before's McLaren. Who knows?
Yeah.
I genuinely don't know. I don't know. I know there's a thing about like the different like style of the car as well, so that could also help too. Like pointy front end, or there's loads of different ways that you can set up cars and stuff, or the way that the like ethos or the like idea of the car. But who knows? But regardless, I'm glad that AlphaTauri seem to be all of a sudden in with a shout. It's really, really good to see.
Yep. Do you know who's had a downturn in performance?
Mercedes.
Mercedes. I saw Tote's interview with Ted Kravitz.
Yeah.
And if looks could kill,
Yeah.
that guy was about to turn into the Terminator. They cannot wait for the season to end.
Yeah, I think they're definitely in a period of pain right now. But I'm surprised I didn't get some. I still can't believe that Mercedes did this like at the beginning of last season, where I think they finished like 5th or something like that, and they released an apology email like, "This is not what you're used to." Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah, I'm being serious. They released an apology email that this isn't where they want to be. They want to be like further, faster, all that fun stuff. So I'm
Every team
surprised I
wants
didn't.
that.
Yeah, but if you're Haas and the last season you finish 16th and 17th, and then you come back the next season you finish 18th and 19th, you're not going to write an apology. It was just odd. Anyway, I'm surprised that we didn't get anything like that. Like it was a really, really bad weekend as a whole for Mercedes, especially considering this is the track that they won at last year.
Yeah, with the zero side pods.
With 0 side pods. So, meaning that the W13 will go down in history as a more, as a better car, statistically, than the W14.
I think they just need to. I know they have, but they just got to write off the season.
They have.
Just do as much testing and development.
I think they wrote off the season like 2 or 3 months in.
Yeah. But the thing was, it's so strange, and I think this is why maybe Toto looks as angry as he does, because like Austin, okay, and there was a plank issue, but they did well, and obviously Max had an issue. Qatar, they were doing well.
Yeah, true.
Right, and then all of a sudden, it's like no pace. But the thing is, right, you can kind of compare it to Aston Martin, but like Aston Martin were like, they're doing well, we bought upgrades, and it just went downhill, right? But we can see those upgrades aren't working, and we can see that they've gone back to the old spec pretty much, and the car is somewhat a lot better. Mercedes, you just don't know what's going to happen from one race to another.
It's also very interesting. I'm going to point this out as well. It's also very interesting that somehow the old spec car, which they've obviously made upgrades to, performs better than the one with upgrades. It's also very interesting that that's exactly what Sergio Perez asked for. He asked to drive the pre-Barcelona spec car as well a few races ago as well. So maybe that would actually be beneficial for Sergio to do so. I don't know. But it's just a very interesting sort of thought and comparison between the two teams and the cars and the setups and stuff that they actually have. But I think that, like you said, like Mercedes have essentially written off the season, which is probably a very good thing for them. Then you have to look at like the next season and stuff like that, and remember as well that Red Bull stopped developing after the summer break. They focused purely on next year's car, especially because of the wind tunnel penalty as well. So I honestly, I'm still a little bit scared that next year Red Bull will still have that domination locked in for pretty much the entirety of next year as well.
Yeah, unless something crazy happens, which we won't know until Australia.
No.
Next year. It looks like they've got that year. Or Bahrain, sorry.
Yeah,
Bahrain.
there it is.
Sorry. I'm still classic.
No. We know exactly where the season should start. Season should start in Australia. It should start in Australia and then go to Japan. That's how the
still
season
classic
should go.
But they've got James Allison obviously back working on the car.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to see what he brings. But yeah, it was just a shame because it's similar to Charles, where like, they've got a bit of hope, they could push, might be able to get a win this season.
Yeah.
And it looks like they could go winless. But actually, going back to an earlier conversation, I think you're right. Fernando Alonso wasn't driver of the day. Neither was Lando.
Sorry,
it was
Logan Sargent.
Lance motherfucking Stroll was driver of the day. Put some respect on his name, right? Put some respect on his name.
To all the listeners, I'm now looking for a new podcast host to replace Ash after that outrageous opinion.
P5, right?
Is
P5.
expected in the third fastest car.
ahead of two Mercedes, ahead of the only Ferrari there.
Right.
Put some respect on that man's name. Considering what he's been through in the past few races, he put it on P3 in quali, wasn't there for the sprint one, but neither was Fernando. And he had a solid race from start to finish and brought in a whole load of points. For the team.
I'll be. Lance Stroll turned up for once.
He did turn
Congratulations.
up. Now, you just got to turn up every race.
But also Perez turned up for once.
Perez did turn up.
Outrageous.
He did. I think he had a solid race.
One thing, I will applaud them a little bit, but also Alpine seemed to quietly go about their business.
They did, yeah.
And get 7 points this weekend, which, you know what? Fair play, lads. Fair play.
No.
I mean, you crashed into Alonso, you knobhead, but other than that, like...
Actually, we never talked about that, did we?
Yeah, let's go backwards. I mean, this podcast is all over the place, let's be honest. We spent a minute and a half trying to figure out the quiz question at the beginning.
Who's we? Who's we?
All right, okay. Quizmaster.
Bucky would have got it in about 10 seconds.
Probably, yeah. But yeah, he's still on my lap, by the way. Like, he's still here. But yeah, that crash. What do you think about the crash? And for context, we are definitely talking about the crash during quali for normal quali. Was it normal quali or was it sprint quali?
It was
sprint quali, wasn't it? Because they were trying to race to get the car ready for the sprint. Yeah, so during sprint quali, Ocon loses the car, and he 100% loses the car. You absolute knobhead. You lose the car. Just don't. Everyone can see the onboard. Everyone can see exactly what happened. You lost the car, and you know what? It's okay. You could drive a hell of a lot better than I can in that car. However, just don't lie. I think if it was anyone other than Alonso, he wouldn't have lied. Anyone other.
Yeah. But do you think that because where Alonso was, do you think he went slightly more to the left than he should have, just to make sure he just was nowhere near Alonso going through on a fast lap?
Yeah.
Which meant it just went just off the curb, which caused him to lose control.
So I think that Alonso didn't really do anything that wrong. He probably should have and could have given him more space. However, it doesn't matter because Ocon still lost control of the car. Admittedly, he's on a push lap. That's what sometimes happens. He lost control of the car, but he had enough space.
Yeah.
It's just a mistake. It is what it is. Essentially, it is what it is. He made a mistake. He crashed. It's that simple.
Also, armchair psychologist time.
Oh God.
When I was listening to the team radio of Fernando, he sounded very shook up. Maybe if you go back and listen to it and tell me if I'm just sprouting bullshit. But I kind of understand. Yes. I can understand why he might have been a little bit scared at that time because he's going slowly, letting a car in a quali or sprint quali lap go, and it's come in and hit him, and it's like that could have been seriously fucking dangerous.
Oh yeah, if that mistake from Ocon had been any worse, he could have gone into the side of him or into the back. You're talking whiplash. You're talking a proper injury.
So imagine you got a car going full pelt, and you've got another car. But, he's on a quali lap. I'm just going to slow down and let him past. Come straight into you. That's a scary, scary situation. So, yeah, it sounded like that on the radio where he was like in serious shock. Like, whoa, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't blame him whatsoever.
Yeah. Can we talk about that battle between Sergio and Fernando?
Yes, let's talk about that battle. This podcast has been all over the place. Yeah, whatever. I don't really care.
I mean, hey, look, let's end talking about the race on a high because that was an epic battle.
Sure, yeah.
To hold off a Red Bull with
easily
DRS,
the fastest car on the grid.
Easily the fastest car on the grid. Lap after lap after lap is, mate, Fernando still got it in him. You know, it's like to those who, I mean, no one ever really thought he left, but they're like, oh, is he old? Does he still have it? The guy still fucking has it.
He definitely still has it, 100%.
And then to get that position back on the last lap and have echoes of Japan with him and Vettel.
Yeah.
Man, that guy, just imagine if this was 10 years ago and that Aston was on the level of the Red Bull and the Mercedes was on the level of Red Bull, can you imagine the fight we'd have at the championship?
Well, here's an interesting idea, and this is going to take a little bit of imagination. But what if, right, Aston Martin over the winter, Papa Stroll bursts through the doors and he's like, boys, we need to get these upgrades nailed on. And they do, right? They get the upgrades absolutely nailed. The Aston Martin is
Sorry,
pretty
Sid,
quick.
can I just stop you? Are they getting the Honda engine next year?
No, is that 25?
Is it 25? Okay,
I
that's
think
cool.
it's
Just wanted to-
25.
I can't remember if it was next year.
Regardless, I mean, the Honda
Okay.
engine will help them. Let's be honest. It's going to help them. But so imagine that happens. Aston Martin completely nail it. Red Bull have an okay winter. They have an okay winter. They have been affected by the wind tunnel penalty. And you know what? They bring a couple of upgrades, but they've done what they needed to do. McLaren, they're obviously still climbing back up and they're still improving their car. And I feel like they're going to probably come out of the winter break either really, really good, or they're going to do what Aston Martin have done for the past couple of races, and they're not going to get their upgrades done correctly, or they're not going to work correctly. However, for argument's sake, let's say the McLaren also comes out of the winter doing very well. You could potentially have a 3 or 4 or maybe even 5-way battle for the championship if those cars are similar enough in pace.
Oh, can you imagine?
Across
You've got
3
the Ferrari.
teams.
No, but imagine if you've got the Ferrari, the Mercedes, the Aston, and the Red Bull, that would make for an epic season.
The reason why I didn't mention the Ferrari is because Ferrari luck.
Is it Ferrari luck or is it Charles luck?
I think it's both. Let's be honest. You've got to remember that Carlos Sainz's car set on fire a couple of years ago, like out of nowhere. So Carlos does also have some bad luck. He's missed out on 3 podiums in his entire career after the podium has even happened. So Carlos also has some bad luck as well. Let's not say that,
not as bad as Charles.
Not as bad as Charles. Charles, I think somebody needs to check in on him this morning. But. Oh, sorry, I've got the dog.
He's probably just lying on his bed, just looking up at the ceiling, just like, oh, what is life?
Yeah.
What am I doing with my life?
Yeah, it's just...
I'm rich. I'm handsome. I drive a Ferrari, and I feel empty inside.
Yeah.
And now he's going to Vegas.
Vegas, yeah. Oh, God.
Do you know what? You should be like, Charles, red or black? Red. Right, everything on black.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would ask if I should ask him for like financial advice. I should ask him for like lottery numbers, everything. But yeah, no, like I do. That's the reason why I didn't say Ferrari is because of Ferrari luck. But like I said, can you imagine if there was a proper title fight next year? I don't know how well, this is way past this race, but I don't know how well the other teams are going to come out of the winter break. But I would like to set your minds racing to think about how cool it would be to have a title fight between 3 teams. It's probably not going to happen. Red Bull are probably going to run away with it, and that's the way things are. But just let's just sip a little bit of that copium and just hope that that's the case, because I'll be honest with you, especially with how, Formula One has grown so much over the past couple of years, I do genuinely feel like 1 or 2 more years of utter dominance by Max and Red Bull could see the sport's popularity start shrinking. It's currently growing, and it's still growing a decent amount, but it could start shrinking at one point.
Yeah, no, if it's the same thing every race... Like, especially if you know Max is going to win, do you really want to get up like at 4 a.m. for an early morning race?
If you're a casual fan, if you're not a diehard like we are, I don't mean to lump you in that. I don't mean to put words in your mouth. I do apologise. But if you're not a diehard like we are, who get up at 7 a.m. to watch like in Japan and stuff like that, then... Sorry, am I boring you? Sorry, my dog just yawned for audio listeners. But yeah, so... It's going to kill a lot of those casual fans, especially with sprint races, which typically have been boring.
Yep.
So, yeah. I don't know.
But I don't know. Well, we'll see. But yeah, Brazil was...
Sprint races, reverse track. Can you
I
imagine
don't think they can
reverse
do
track
it for
sprint races?
I don't think they can do it for safety reasons.
Red Bull Ring you can, because they looked into it during COVID. We've already spoken about this. Apparently it was like really looked into, and the only reason why they didn't do it, because obviously they did 2 races at Red Bull Ring that year of COVID. The only reason why they couldn't is because they didn't have enough time to make it safe for FIA approval. So, yeah,
Nah.
you wouldn't want a reverse Red Bull Ring.
No, because the whole point is we want the grid to be mixed up. All you're doing is reversing the track. Max will still go out and smash
Probably,
it.
yeah, but it'd be slightly more interesting.
Okay, can we just wrap up?
Anyway, yeah, sorry.
I think your dog wants us to wrap up. As well.
Honestly, he's going down. I think like I said, he wants to go to the outside.
Okay.
To be fair, he is very snuggly and very soft. And obviously, I do have Senna as well. He's just in a pen, sleeping in the other room. So I would have had him join us for technical analysis, but he's busy getting
as
his
he eats the microphone.
He would probably also eat the microphone as well. Yes.
Yeah. We'll do another episode for Vegas. But do you have any last thoughts on Brazil before we wrap up?
I'm just going back, and I think Logan was semi-unlucky not to score points with the amount of retirements there were. But obviously, looking at the grid and looking at the pace and stuff like that, I think that Alex could have scored points here. So that's a bit of a
Well,
missed
Logan got
opportunity.
11th.
Yeah, Logan managed to get 11th. He beat both the Haas cars. And
he beat a Ferrari.
Yeah.
McLaren.
Exactly.
Both Alphas.
Ash, there's got to be a reel out of that somewhere. But yeah,
I just died in your arms tonight.
Yeah, I genuinely love Brazil as a track, and it's no coincidence that the traditional tracks keep on bringing us the best racing.
So true.
There is a reason why they are on the calendar, and there is a reason why things like the Vegas Grand Prix have been dropped from the calendar multiple times, because we did it in Caesar's Palace car park. We've done it random play. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, the thing is, those street races, you're limited by the
streets.
Yeah. Whereas for like Brazil, it's like, here's a wide open area.
I have good news. Good news. I've got to tell you.
Do you know what? This is the most random podcast.
Honestly,
ever.
this podcast has been all over the place. Like, do you remember the one we did for Austin, where it was just like we talked about anything but the race?
Yeah, we talked about everything.
This is pretty much what we're doing again now. But so with Petronus's renewed deal, apparently the Malaysian Grand Prix could be coming back soon. That would be amazing. Like, I'm so excited. Like, just from the idea of Malaysia coming back. Like, it's such a cool track. Probably one of the best on the calendar. If it's on the calendar.
Cool track.
And I also heard another rumor that if China is still struggling, or for some reason they cancel the Chinese Grand Prix, Malaysia is the replacement that's potentially going to take its place.
Do you know what I wish they would bring back? Valencia. I know it's a street circuit, but it was a really good circuit.
Can you imagine if other than Monaco, because obviously there's no other way that you could do it, but for countries where they have like it's almost like World Cup bids, and you know they have them playing at different stadiums and stuff like that. Like the country bids to have a Formula One. But then, like the tracks have to change and stuff like that. So sometimes instead of having the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona, sometimes it's in Valencia, like that sort of stuff. Or like for Italy, one time it's in Monza, and then the other time, Monza kind of has to stay, doesn't it? But you get my point. Like the country has to change up the track a little bit sometimes. That would be really cool, because that's one of the ways that we get stuff like that.
Do you know what they need to do? And I don't know why. Maybe it's a money issue. They need to race in Africa.
Yeah,
they need a race in Africa.
South
then it's
Africa,
truly global. Yeah, if they can go to South Africa, or anywhere, if they could. Oh man, that would be epic.
We still need to put together. I know we said it before, but here's another.
I thought we were doing it for the winter break.
Yeah, another podcast episode for the winter break is we put together our dream F1 calendars.
Oh, yeah.
So we put together what we fit in any order that we like. Fuck the planet.
Here comes back Mr. Regional Championship.
Regional championships make sense. Don't Don't you dare. Okay, regional championships make sense. Okay, and a separate sprint championship makes sense. Don't
Okay,
at
then.
me. Okay.
If we do it, we have to have like rules. For example,
yeah.
like, are we going to make it sustainable?
No, fuck that. No, I don't care. No.
Okay, and we have to use like current tracks, or can we use
current, past, whatever,
or even past tracks.
You can.
Okay.
I will even allow you to use your
No. We have to use real tracks. We'll use real tracks.
We'll do our best to use real tracks that have been used for some sort of race. So, for example, you could potentially have us race at a NASCAR circuit in the US for some apparent reason, if you really wanted to.
I think just sticking with Formula One circuits, because I can already see I'm bringing back Nürburgring.
Oh, 100%, 100% Nürburgring's coming back, because then also I can go and it's easy.
You can go to this fake races.
Yeah, I can go to the fake races during this fake Grand Prix season. Formula One season, Grand Prix season. But yeah, we should definitely do that during the off season. Definitely.
Yeah, that's
a really cool, fun idea. Yeah. And we can also decide like how many races long it's going to be.
Yeah. Oh, there's two things I would like to raise before we sign off.
Yes.
The first is Brazil has been extended.
Yes, 2030.
Yeah. Woo, woo. And let's sign off. Let's sign off, because we have to talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
But
let's wrap things up with this topic,
let's wrap things up with Martin Brundle and Machine Gun Kelly.
Oh, gee. Oh, my God. I've disliked Machine Gun Kelly since
I have
the dawn
no
of
feelings
time.
towards him. I don't listen to his music. I don't really follow him, so I don't care.
He's a complete and utter arse. I mean, I mean, to give you an example, I can have an opinion on Chris Brown, who, by the way, apparently is performing on Friday night in for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. But I can have an opinion on him, even though I don't listen to his stuff and don't really pay much attention to him. He's also an arse. But so I don't get how on earth you could come across worse on the grid than Machine Gun Kelly did.
I understand. I understand that celebrities use Formula One as a promotional aspect, right? Hey, I've got a song or an album or a film coming up. But then, okay, that's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. But then to come up there and say, not even talk about your music you're releasing or your career, it's like, I don't really think about my career, and then not know anything about the sport. It's like, dude, and then leave early. Apparently he left early during the race. It's like, why would you even come?
In his
like,
defense, the race was boring.
Like, why? What's the point? You know? And I've never. Also, maybe you can't just base it on one opinion, but I've never thought, oh, I want to watch that film or I want to listen to that song because said celebrity is on the grid.
I think one of the exceptions, obviously, around like I would actually check that out around celebrities being on the grid and being interviewed and stuff like that, is that if it actually makes sense to be there. So, for example, if they had
Brad Pitt
there talking about the new film, if they had
Keanu
Reeves there talking about the oh my god, which comes out next week. I'm really looking forward to it. The Braun documentary comes out on Disney Plus next week. Like if it makes sense for you to be there, or if you're a fan in and of itself, like I think what's the guy who was in Ant-Man?
Paul Rudd.
No, not the old man. Who's
Michael Douglas?
Michael Douglas. He's a big F1 fan. He deserves to be there. That's brilliant. That makes
like Jeremy
sense.
Clarkson.
Jeremy Clarkson also deserves to be there. Makes sense. But Machine Gun Kelly, no. Cara Delevingne, whatever her name was, I can't remember. The one with the eyebrows. Whatever. Yeah. Why are you there? Why? And also, I feel like admittedly, this one didn't go badly for Martin Brundle. Oh, who was the other one as well when he was like chasing, like, not Nicki Minaj, Megan Thee Stallion or something like that in the US last year? Yeah,
and then like one of our entourage is like, like, you can't do that. He's like, yes, I can.
Yes, I can. I absolutely can. Martin Brundle is a legend. It's kind of annoying. I don't listen to the F1 Sky Sports commentary purely because I prefer the F1 TV commentary when it's David Coulthard on there as well. But I kind of miss Brundle and I miss his grid walks because we don't see it on F1 TV. It's slightly annoying.
Oh, don't
so
you?
I have to then go on to like X or something like that and find the
They're on
replays
YouTube.
or something. Yeah, some of them are on YouTube. But also then they're country locked as well, so I'd have to use a VPN to watch them. Like it's that again, fuck Sky Sports, because they make things really inaccessible.
That makes no sense. Like you'd want to like have the grid walk open to everyone to watch on YouTube. I can understand the race, but the grid walk.
Yeah, no, I'm 99% sure you can't access it unless you're in the UK because of licensing issues and stuff like that, which I kind of get, but at the same time, Sky, come on, man.
Oh gosh!
But we should really wrap up there before I, put my foot in it anymore with Sky.
Yeah, it was a meh race, but thank God for Fernando and Sergio. And yeah, we're off to Vegas next, which is going to be interesting because we don't know the track, we don't know what's going to happen, and it's Vegas.
Well, we know what's going to happen.
Okay, yeah, we know what's going to happen. Yeah. But it will be interesting. I think it will be cool to see cars driving down the strip and past like the Bellagio fountains and the lit up casinos and hotels. I think that would look cool.
It will be cool.
There's going to be a lot of good photography moments. So
it will be cool for 5 laps, and then it will get old. That's just my opinion. But also with this as well, we're going to have to talk about it next week. But I wanted to bring up the locals' responses to.
We'll talk about it next week. I've seen some funny videos.
I've seen some videos as well of them like blocking public like access and like putting up stickers so that people can't see and like charging people. It's a whole mess. But
apparently they might go on strike.
As well. Ridiculous. But one thing I would say is that isn't Las Vegas built entirely on tourism and doing events, and now everyone's complaining that tourism and events are happening? Don't live in that cesspool.
I think it's because like one event is stopping the other events from happening.
Tough shit. Like it's Formula One. It's the one of the biggest shows in the world. But I am so looking forward to the opening ceremony on Thursday, which is just going to be a cringe fest. I want DJ Khaled there again, being his usual idiotic
Let's go,
Lance. Knobhead. I want all of that. I can't wait. I will drink it in. I want the announcement type thing that they did at Miami. Like I want as much cringe as possible.
I've got to give it to LL Cool J. He got all the names
He
right,
was okay. LL Cool J was okay, but it was the presentation and like trying to like the rest of it just wasn't great. There was so many awkward silences and stuff like that. There was no music. There was Hopefully they've learned from it because obviously also Formula One are promoting this themselves, so hopefully they've learned from previous experiences. But we're running into next week's content, so let's maybe shut up.
Yeah. Do you want to wrap up then?
Yeah, let's wrap us up. I think that we didn't even talk about how successful Max was and how he broke Ascari's record for most percentage of wins and all that stuff.
Well done, Max.
Well done. But I'll be honest with you.
And him singing on the radio.
Yeah, he sung on the radio, a bit of Tom Jones. Didn't know what it was at first, but there we go. But that's because I'm about 12. But yeah, enjoyable enough weekend, but the race was a little bit boring. But I'm super, super glad that we will be back for years to come, at least 7 more years to come. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 7 more years definitely 7 more years, 7 more races. Let's just hope that we don't have any more sprint races there.
Cool. Thank you for listening. If you like disjointed random talks on Formula One for about 45 minutes
disjointed
to an hour, please subscribe, rate. It means a lot because it's like, hey, we're doing something that someone likes, and we will be with you. It's a break from racing, which I think is needed.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll be back with a Las Vegas preview and whatever else is happening in the crazy world of Formula One.
Yeah, I think we should probably do an episode again, this is not wrapping up in any sort of way, but we should do an episode around. I
literally just wrapped it up nicely, and you're like, let's just throw something else.
It's fine, everything's fine. But we should do an episode. This is for the listeners, so they know exactly what's going to come up. But I think we should do an episode around like the response and like the build up of like the race next week, And then the week of the Grand Prix is when we should actually do like race predictions and talk about the track and stuff like that. But next week we should talk about like the reception it's getting and all that stuff. How does that sound?
Yeah, that
Because we don't have anything else to talk about. So
yeah, that's true.
well, you say that.
Sounds good. Yeah, well, something might happen.
Yeah, who knows?
Oh my god, so and so has decided to leave. Like we didn't even talk about Mike Elliott leaving, but no, we'll cover that in the next one.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for listening.
Cheers, everyone.